Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. The moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop explaining, the moment you finally choose your own peace, that's the moment he feels your absence. Not because you begged, not because you waited, but because you walked away with dignity. And when a man realizes he lost access to your energy, your loyalty, your presence, he doesn't forget. He returns. And this time, he begs. Absence is not emptiness. Absence is a mirror. When you step back and remove your presence from someone's life, you are no longer cushioning them from the consequences of their choices. While you were there, your patience softened their mistakes. Your understanding excused their distance. Your loyalty filled the gaps where effort should have lived. But once you are gone, there is no buffer left, only truth. Silence becomes louder than arguments ever were, and the space you leave behind begins to speak in ways words never could. In your absence, time slows down for them. Moments that once passed unnoticed now feel heavy. They replay conversations, gestures, and routines they assumed would always be there. The simple things, the good morning messages, the emotional support, the consistency, start to echo in their mind. What once felt ordinary now feels irreplaceable. This is where clarity begins to form, not in chaos, not in conflict, but in stillness. Absence forces reflection, and reflection forces honesty. Clarity arrives because there is no longer distraction. Without you, they can't blame stress, timing, or circumstances. There is no one to argue with, no one to convince, no one to lean on emotionally. They are left alone with their thoughts, and those thoughts start asking difficult questions. Why does it feel empty? Why doesn't the replacement feel the same? Why does peace feel incomplete without the one person who truly understood them? These questions don't come immediately, but they always come eventually. Your absence also removes familiarity, and familiarity is often mistaken for permanence. Many people don't realize the value of something until it stops being accessible. When you were present, your love felt guaranteed. Your forgiveness felt endless. Your availability felt secure. But once that access is gone, reality sets in. They begin to understand that consistency is rare, emotional safety is priceless, and genuine care cannot be recreated on demand. Absence teaches what presence tried to explain. What makes absence so powerful is that it doesn't argue back. It doesn't demand validation. It doesn't beg for understanding. It simply exists, and that existence becomes undeniable. While words can be dismissed and emotions can be minimized, absence cannot be ignored. It sits in empty spaces, unfilled routines, and unanswered moments. And every time they reach for what used to be there and realize it's gone, clarity deepens. Most importantly, absence shifts the power dynamic. When you stop reaching out, you stop reminding them of your worth. You give them the responsibility to remember it on their own. And that's when it finally clicks. You weren't asking for too much. You were offering something rare. Absence reveals that truth slowly, painfully, and unmistakably. It is not punishment. It is perspective. Self-respect changes everything the moment you choose it. It is the quiet decision to stop tolerating what drains you and stop accepting what diminishes you. When you stand in self-respect, you no longer negotiate your value or over-explain your needs. You move differently. You speak less, but with more intention. And that shift is felt immediately, even if nothing is said out loud. People notice when access to you is no longer free, unlimited, or guaranteed. When you had little self-respect, your availability made others comfortable. You answered quickly, forgave easily, and stayed even when it hurt. That consistency, while loving, also made your presence feel predictable, and predictability often gets mistaken for permanence. But the moment you choose self-respect, that pattern breaks. You no longer show up at the expense of your peace. You no longer stay silent to keep harmony, and that change creates tension, not because you are wrong, but because you are no longer controllable. Self-respect is magnetic because it signals boundaries without needing to announce them. You don't have to threaten, chase, or explain. Your actions do the talking. When you stop tolerating neglect, mixed signals, or emotional inconsistency, people feel the difference. They sense that something has shifted, and that shift forces them to reevaluate how they treated you. What once felt casual now feels like a missed opportunity. There is power in not reacting. Self-respect teaches you restraint. Instead of emotional outbursts, you choose composure. Instead of arguments, you choose distance. That calm response unsettles people more than confrontation ever could. It makes them question themselves. It makes them replay moments where they pushed too far, assumed too much, or gave too little. Because when someone no longer reacts the way they used to, it's a sign that they've grown, and growth changes the balance. Magnetism doesn't come from trying to be desired. It comes from knowing you'll be fine whether someone stays or leaves. Self-respect builds that inner stability. You stop proving your worth and start protecting it. And when someone realizes you are no longer seeking validation from them, their perception changes. Suddenly, they're the ones seeking reassurance. Suddenly, your absence feels heavier because your presence is no longer something they can casually return to. Over time, self-respect forces recognition. People don't miss weakness. They miss strength they underestimated. They miss the person who gave freely but didn't need to. They miss the energy that was patient yet powerful. And when they see you standing firm, unbothered, focused, and grounded, they feel the pull, not because you asked for it, but because self-respect commands attention without demanding it. Growth is the quiet transformation that happens when you stop waiting and start building. While others remain focused on what they lost, you redirect that energy into becoming more disciplined, more aware, and more grounded. This kind of growth doesn't announce itself. It shows up in your routines, your mindset, and the way you carry yourself. And the moment someone realizes you didn't break, you expanded, the power dynamic shifts. When you were emotionally invested, your focus was divided. Your energy flowed outward, constantly checking in, adjusting, and accommodating. But growth pulls that energy back inward. You begin to invest in your goals, your health, your peace, and your future. That internal focus creates strength. You stop seeking approval and start trusting your own direction. And when someone sees that you no longer revolve around them, they feel the imbalance immediately. Growth creates independence, and independence changes leverage. The person who needs less holds more power. When you are no longer emotionally dependent on validation, consistency, or attention from someone else, you become unpredictable in the best way. Your reactions are calmer, your decisions are firmer, you don't rush to respond or explain. This emotional stability makes others uncomfortable because they can no longer influence you the way they once did. As you grow, your standards rise naturally. What you once tolerated now feels misaligned. Conversations that lack depth no longer interest you. Effort that feels half-hearted no longer satisfies you. This isn't arrogance, it's awareness. And when someone notices that they no longer meet your level, it triggers reflection. They begin to question whether they underestimated you or assumed you would always remain the same. Growth also removes fear. You are no longer afraid of being alone, misunderstood, or left behind. You've proven to yourself that you can rebuild, adapt, and thrive without depending on someone else's presence. That confidence is subtle, but it's unmistakable. It shows in your posture, your tone, and your choices. And when someone realizes you're no longer afraid to walk away, they understand that access to you is no longer guaranteed. Ultimately, growth flips the narrative. The one who once felt secure leaving now feels uncertain returning. The one who assumed you would stay now sees you moving forward without hesitation. Growth doesn't seek revenge or validation. It simply elevates you. And elevation naturally changes who holds the power, because when you outgrow a situation, you also outgrow the need to chase it. True confidence is quiet. It doesn't raise its voice, defend its worth, or demand to be understood. It stands firm without seeking permission. When you are confident, you stop trying to convince people of your value, because you are no longer unsure of it yourself. This shift is powerful because it removes the need for constant clarification, and in doing so, it changes how others perceive and approach you. In the past, explaining yourself may have felt necessary. You wanted to be understood, appreciated, and chosen. So you justified your feelings, softened your boundaries, and over-communicated your intentions. But confidence teaches you that the right people don't need constant reminders of your worth. When you stop explaining, you stop overgiving, and that absence of justification speaks louder than any argument ever could. Confidence also brings emotional control. You don't react impulsively or try to fix what someone else refuses to handle. You allow people to show you who they are without interrupting the process. That restraint creates curiosity and unease. When you no longer rush to clear misunderstandings or defend your actions, others are forced to sit with their assumptions. And often, they realize they misjudged you only after it's too late. What makes confidence unsettling is its consistency. You don't change your energy to be liked. You don't chase reassurance when it's withheld. You remain steady whether someone approves or not. This steadiness removes manipulation from the equation. When emotional reactions disappear, control disappears with them. And when someone can no longer influence your mood or decisions, they begin to feel the loss of power. Confidence also simplifies your communication. You say less, but every word carries weight. You no longer feel obligated to explain why you stepped back, why you set boundaries, or why you chose yourself. Your actions make your position clear. And when someone sees you moving forward without announcing it, they understand that you are no longer seeking permission or validation. You are acting from certainty. Over time, this kind of confidence forces respect. People may not like it at first, but they recognize it. They realize you are no longer operating from fear or attachment. You are operating from self-trust. And self-trust doesn't argue, persuade, or plead. It simply moves forward. That silent assurance lingers in people's minds long after conversations end, because confidence that needs no explanation cannot be shaken or ignored. Regret doesn't arrive loudly. It comes quietly in moments of comparison and reflection. It shows up when someone realizes that what they once had cannot be recreated with someone else. When you were present, your effort blended into the background. Your consistency became expected. Your patience was assumed, and because it was always there, it was never fully valued. People rarely appreciate stability while they have it. They notice it most when it's gone. Taking someone for granted happens gradually. It begins with small dismissals, delayed responses, and unspoken assumptions. Over time, appreciation fades and entitlement grows. They start believing you'll always understand, always forgive, always stay. But when you remove yourself, that illusion collapses. The comfort they once felt turns into discomfort, and the security they relied on disappears. That's when regret begins to take shape. Regret intensifies through comparison. They meet others who don't listen the same way, don't support the same way, and don't show up with the same sincerity. What once felt replaceable now feels rare. They realize that emotional depth, loyalty, and genuine care aren't common traits. And with every interaction that falls short, your absence becomes more noticeable. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. Memory plays a powerful role in regret. Moments they overlooked start replaying in their mind. The way you showed up when it mattered, the way you believed in them during uncertainty, the way you offered peace instead of pressure. These memories don't surface when everything is going well. They surface when something feels missing. And once they do, they're hard to silence. Regret also brings humility. The realization that they misjudged your value forces them to confront their own actions. They begin to see where they gave less, where they assumed too much, and where they failed to protect something meaningful. This awareness doesn't always lead to immediate action, but it creates a lingering sense of loss, a feeling that something important slipped through their hands. What makes regret powerful is its timing. It often arrives when it can no longer be fixed easily. By the time they understand what they lost, you've already grown beyond the version of yourself that waited, and that realization that you are no longer accessible in the same way is what makes the regret real. Not because you left, but because they failed to recognize your worth while they had the chance. Control returns to you the moment you realize that endings are not something that happen to you. They are something you choose. For a long time, your focus may have been on being accepted, understood, or chosen. But growth teaches you that your power was never in convincing someone to stay. It was in deciding what you would tolerate. When you reclaim that authority, the narrative shifts. You are no longer reacting to circumstances. You are directing them. Choosing the ending doesn't mean acting out of bitterness or pride. It means acting out of clarity. You see the situation for what it is, not what you hoped it would become. You understand the cost of staying in places where effort is uneven and respect is inconsistent. With that understanding comes decisiveness. You stop delaying hard choices. You stop reopening doors that cost you peace, and that decisiveness becomes your strength. When someone returns, the power is no longer in their words, it's in your response. You are no longer waiting for validation or reassurance. You evaluate behavior, consistency, and accountability. You notice whether actions align with promises. This shift is subtle but profound. The version of you that once hoped for change has been replaced by someone who requires proof. And that requirement changes the entire dynamic. Deciding the ending also means accepting uncertainty without fear. You no longer cling to familiar pain just to avoid the unknown. You trust your ability to adapt, rebuild, and move forward. That trust frees you. It allows you to walk away without resentment and stay without self-betrayal. You understand that peace is not found in holding on. It's found in choosing what aligns with your values. Ownership of the ending brings emotional maturity. You don't need closure from someone else because you've given it to yourself. You've processed the lessons, acknowledged the growth, and released the need for explanation. This self-closure is powerful because it removes dependency. You are no longer waiting for someone else to decide how the story ends. You've already written it. Ultimately, deciding the ending is about self-leadership. You move with intention, not impulse. You choose based on alignment, not attachment. And in doing so, you protect the version of yourself you've worked hard to become. The ending is no longer about loss or return, it's about sovereignty. You stand grounded in the knowledge that whatever comes next, you are prepared, centered, and in control. So understand this clearly. You were never meant to chase what couldn't recognize your value. You were meant to become so grounded, so disciplined, so self-aware that your presence became a privilege, not an option. If they return, it won't be because you waited. It will be because you moved forward, because you chose growth over attachment, clarity over chaos, and self-respect over comfort. And by the time they finally understand what they lost, you won't be standing in the same place you were before. You'll be standing in strength.